You're live.
Okay.
Hello and welcome back to our 2022 fifth annual Big Give. Just as a reminder, our theme for this year is Dupe 15Q. Doesn't come with a manual, but it comes with a family that never gives up. And here we go again. We are blessed to have another parent with us today who literally never gives up. She is a fierce advocate for her daughter, Morgan, who has Dupe 15Q syndrome. And in particular, I'm so excited to hear about these advocacy skills because I feel like we utilize them with so many different people in so many different ways. But I know you're going to be sharing a little bit about like her medical doctors or team. But first, Rebecca, thanks again for joining us. Can you tell us a little bit about Morgan, what's new with her and what's happening over there?
Well, right now we're actually preparing for surgery on Monday. She is actually having surgery. It's a follow-up surgery to her bilateral hip surgery that she's had for hip dysplasia. And she's actually getting some really fancy hardware that they installed on both of her sides. She's getting those removed because she has grown so much in the last couple of years, which we want to see that, but because she's grown so much, she has to have those taken out. So that's kind of what's happening now. So yesterday I spent a lot of time on the phone with the pre-op surgical team and registration, of course. I'm sure all of us are familiar with all those fun phone calls of confirming insurance and all that other stuff. So that's kind of what we're getting ready for. With that, of course, comes with concerns of seizures, making sure that she gets her seizure medications on time. When can we give it to her before surgery? What other meds can we give to her after surgery? So there's just a lot of coordination, a lot of moving things around for her, but making sure that she stays safe and healthy during the whole process.
Rebecca, so will they be replaced or just taken out?
Just taken out.
Okay.
So there is a slight chance that she could have, there's a little bit increased risk of breaks because she does have some holes in her bone, so to speak, from the plates and screws that held them together once the surgery was done. So she will have some healing to do after that. But once that healing is done, she will, hopefully we don't have to revisit this extensive surgery that she's had on her hips. But she had hip dysplasia so extreme, it was almost 90% on each side. She was almost completely, she had no hip socket or no hip joint to speak of, the poor girl. So so hopefully this is the final step, and hopefully they stay in a good position as she grows.
Oh gosh, we'll be thinking about you and your whole family on Monday. So thank you for sharing that. Is there anything else new that she's doing? Any kind of additional challenges that have come about as of recent?
Yeah. Seizures.
You're like, yes, seizures always get
there are always challenges. Yes, there's always some project or some challenge. And Morgan had an overnight sleep study, and EEG in March. And what I had noticed in her was she's just been fatigued. During the day. She gets fatigued really easily. And a part of that could be her overall condition. I mean, she has low muscle tone. She has to work way harder than any other kid to do just the regular stuff. So could have been that. But of course, I'm constantly talking to her doctors about everything and making sure I cover everything. I wanted to make sure that they were aware of that, would be just her overall condition, but I have noticed it, and it seems like it's not improving and might even be getting a little bit worse. So, so they asked me, of course, lots of questions, and this was her neurologist asked me a bunch of questions, also her ENT, and also her primary care provider. So 3 doctors have kind of been involved in this whole conversation that we've had, and some of the questions they've asked have been, how is she sleeping? Is she snoring? And she does a little bit. So she does have some risk factors for sleep apnea, but also it'd been a long time since she had an EEG. So we went ahead and tacked that on. I kind of pushed for that, said, you know what, it's been a few years since she's had a long EEG. Maybe it's a good idea we do this. And lo and behold, the sleep apnea, she's kind of on the cusp for that. She has some abnormal things that are going on in her sleep, breathing wise. But seizures, they actually found a lot of activity going on at night in the back of like partial seizures, the back of her brain. So we've had to increase her medications and do some adjustments to try to get those under control. But it caught me a little off guard because I was not expecting that. I was just like, oh, maybe she just has, I was actually more thinking sleep apnea maybe.
Right.
So I was a little surprised that the seizures were kind of getting out of control for her. So that's kind of what we're battling right now.
So Rebecca, can you, you had mentioned her ENT, her neurologist, and I think maybe her regular pediatrician. Is that who you're? So can you tell us a little bit about what that communication looks like between the three of them? And
most of it, the communication between the three of them is usually through the notes. She has a very meticulously well kept file, medical file, electronic notes that are on her chart. But also I'm kind of the go-between between all of them. So anytime I go from one appointment to another, even if it's seemingly unrelated, like neurology, for example, I will bring up sleep issues, even if it's, oh, that's more the ENT job, so to speak. Right. I try to vocalize globally how she's doing, and that gives them kind of a better picture of kind of the whole picture, not just their own specialty. Does that make sense? So, it's exhausting. But it's very important. So
do you have any like tips that you can share for other parents feeling as exhausted as you are with keeping all of this medical information straight, with making sure a team is communicating? Like what kinds of things do you do that you have found helpful?
I have found, like I said, just me keeping tabs on her as a mom and just making sure that I am on, so to speak, every time I go to these doctors. Which it's hard sometimes to remember everything that you want to cover. So I do keep a little notebook on her. I have several. Probably like many of us parents, you have like several files and notebooks, but I have a medical binder that's both electronic as well as paper, and I try to keep that as up to date as I can, because that keeps some of that information that I have to constantly be tracking kind of out of my head and onto somewhere else. But I also keep a notebook on her, and it's very messy, mind you. It's just my notes. So if something changes in her or I note something, I try to jot it down the moment I think of it, so that it's out of my head and I don't have to try to remember it next time she has an appointment. And I usually bring that with me to the appointments, just so that I don't forget questions. Smart. I don't forget random thoughts, or she did this the other day and I don't know if it was a seizure or if it was, but it was weird, and here's what it looked like and here's how long it lasted. And that way, if I don't get it on video, I at least have some kind of way to recollect and how to explain it, everything. So
I know they recommend sometimes, like bring someone else with you, but sometimes there's nobody available to bring. Or during COVID, I know they were being very strict about how many people can come to the appointment with you. So I love that, of just like keeping a running record of everything, because I feel like at school they do that with communication, and how smart is that to do at home with your own your child. I only do that with Brendan's meds whenever they change. Like I rewrite everything, I put the date, and then I take a picture of it too. So if I'm like, I'm signing him up for this little program, and they say, list your medication here. And I'm like, well, there's medications, and I can put that up for you.
And it's this long.
Yes. And do you find that the physicians have been open to your communication and just wanting to be, or is it a little intimidating, do you think, too?
Not always. So that's kind of actually a funny story. I have fired doctors before. And I know that sounds weird. So that only happens in my own head. So just so you're aware, like I've never actually told a doctor, yeah, we don't get along,
Yeah.
you're fired. But you have that power as a parent. And I think that's something that you have to not be afraid to use. And that is to ask for somebody else. If that's someone that isn't, we did that with her neurologist. She actually went through 3 different neurologists before we landed on the one that we have. So I think that's like 4 total. And it was just because I didn't feel like there was that two-way communication going on. And I'm not claiming to know anything about neurology. I don't. That's what I rely on them for. I'm not claiming that I know anything about medical anything. But I do know what her patterns are during the day. I do know what's going on with her. I've been familiar with her diagnosis since she got it when she was 6 weeks old and in the hospital. You know, I'm familiar with her history and I'm familiar with what she is like at home. And I think it's so important to kind of find that doctor, whether it's the neurologist or whether it's your pediatrician. Pediatrician, very important, because they kind of keep a global tab on everything globally happening with your kid. So I do try to look for doctors when I feel like I'm having that two-way conversation, when they're asking me questions, probably as much as I'm asking them questions, that's when I know it's a good fit and I continue working with them. So I have run into difficulties and I can't say, you know, I wouldn't call them, you know, oh, that was a bad neurologist. It just wasn't the right fit for us.
Yes.
Yeah. It wasn't someone who was interested in her little nuances. And I want someone who's interested in the little nuances.
Yeah, thanks for bringing that up. Because I mean, we do know them best. I don't know if you feel this way about Morgan, if you can kind of look at her and just whatever emotion she has, because I believe she's nonverbal, like is she? So we were just saying before, just their facial, just their faces or how they're smiling or how they're not smiling can tell us so much on what's really going on, you know, what kind of issue is happening, if any. So, okay, so let's talk about the website. It's so pretty. I don't know if anybody has noticed our updated website. We're trying to make it, there was so much information on there, which is great, but it was really hard to find stuff. So this is the woman who has helped us get organized and make it look, it's so incredibly streamlined. If you are just like hanging out a Friday night, go on our website because there is so much there. And I still go on there and I'm like, what? I didn't know we had this. So can you talk a little bit about kind of what you did and what you two may have realized that was on there that you're like, oh, so if you could talk a little bit about that, that would be great. Thank you.
Sure. I'm so excited because it was such a fun project to undergo. And it was such a passion project for me because, well, it's the Duplicate Alliance and my daughter and our history with the Duplicate Alliance. So it was such an honor to be approached. Carrie sought me out and said, hey, can you help us with this? You have a background in marketing, you have a background in kind of working with these kinds of things. And I was absolutely honored to go in there and try to make it a little easier to work. So I went in and we did the website reorganization and redesign and try to make that information a little more accessible, a little bit easier to find. Like what you're saying, there was so much on there that it really was kind of hard to find. And that was my goal, was just to kind of bring everything forward, make it really easy for families and caregivers and professionals as well. We kind of, we actually made a professional section on the site now, so that if you have a medical doctor who is interested in learning more, you can actually say, hey, there is a professional section here on the website just for medical professionals to go and learn more about, you know, my child's syndrome. And so that's there too now. So hopefully it helps. And it was really interesting because when I was going through all pages and all the information there, yes, there's tons of stuff on the site that I didn't even know we had. There was information about adaptive gear and equipment. There was information on IEPs, which is huge because all of us have children who are on IEPs and trying to figure out that whole crazy.
We were talking about that today earlier.
That's a process in itself.
About
so
just the anxiety and emotion that go with the IEP. So just to have that more,
Yeah. Yeah. So in the programs and resources, if anyone gets a chance to go on the website and visit programs and resources, there's so much information there. One of the personal projects for me and my family has been looking at special needs trusts and ABLE accounts and just trying to figure out that kind of future planning financial aspect of things, which is, I don't know if anyone else is like this, but that is really overwhelming for me because I don't know anything about it.
150%. You just said it, and I was like, oh,
oh yeah, you immediately tense up.
I know, you kind of like,
so stressful. But there's information there. There's information there for it. So just knowing that on the Alliance website, there's just all this information that's gathered for families like us that are kind of trying to figure this whole crazy thing out. And there's so many different facets to it. There's the medical facets, there's the school facet, there's the financial facet, there's all of these different, and every state's a little different in what programs and resources they have available. So just having a place to start.
Yes.
That's
Instead of the Google, because the Google can be scary, but our website is not.
Yes,
yeah,
exactly.
we actually have more information and resources coming that we're still working on in regards to like symptoms and treatments. And so it's just going to get better and better. So we are so incredibly grateful for all your hard work on that. I love how you call it your passion project.
It is. It's totally, it's been my passion project. And every time I change something or did something, I'm like, oh, I hope this goes, I hope it comes together the way that I want it to and works well. So,
well, it sounds like
I'm glad so far so good.
Yeah, a lot of heart into it too. So we appreciate that. Is there anything else you want to share with our community or with anybody else in terms of like advocating, any kind of takeaway or tips you want to leave anybody with?
I think just constantly talking. I think that is the trick. I know that sounds a little simplified, but I never in my life did I think that I would have a child that would utilize all of my management skills, all of my marketing skills, everything that I learned in school, everything that I learned in the corporate world, and utilize that to navigate life with my child. So my takeaway with that is, there are days where I feel like I've, for lack of a better term, verbal diarrhea, where I'm just, spewing out as much information as possible. But, and sometimes you walk away from an appointment and you're like, was that useful? Did I actually accomplish anything? And it really does, in small little increments, it accomplishes a lot more than you think. So just be sure with every doctor that you sit down with, be ready to talk about everything and anything under the sun regarding your child. It may not apply at that point in time, but it very well could later, or very well could trigger something that you didn't know was as big of an issue as it was, and turned out to be bigger. Yeah, we stumbled on Morgan's hip dysplasia. I don't know if you knew that, but it was not something we knew she had. And it was actually the geneticist who said maybe comprehensive care would be a good doctor to see, but she already had a pediatrician. So in my mind as a parent, I was like, well, what could that add? I'm not sure, what does a comprehensive care physician do differently than a pediatrician? But I went, okay, well, let's try it, because I never met someone in that field of medicine, and let's see what it has and what it does. And what they do is they really kind of handle a lot more special needs children. So they know some of the issues that seem to come up. All of their kids are a little bit different, but there are some similarities across the board as to some of the issues that they run across. And that was how we found the hip dysplasia. It's like, well, is she mobile? No, she's never crawled. She's never, standing is very, very difficult for her. And they're like, well, let's take some x-rays of her hips and see, because this can be an issue because of the way the hip develops.
So Rebecca, how old, I'm so sorry, but how old was she? Just so other parents listening, if they're going,
that's okay.
How old was she when she went to the comprehensive?
She was, I want to say she was 6 when she did. So she was a little bit older, 5 or 6, I want to say, late 2019. So I'm trying to remember when that was.
I know, right?
Yeah. So and what it is I guess the hip develops a certain way. So if you have kids with mobility issues, the hips don't develop the way that they should, because mobility is actually a big part of the way that hips develop. And we did not, excuse me, did not know to look for that. And, not, her pediatrician isn't to blame for it. Her pediatrician kind of was trying to keep an eye on her globally as well.
Yeah.
And this is something that comes up with kids typically who have mobility issues. So, and in my pediatrician, my daughter's pediatrician's words, she's like, Morgan's the most complex child I have. So
Yeah,
it's kind of hard for, she poses a challenge for every doctor that kind of comes across her, because she's so complex. So yeah, we stumbled across it with an x-ray, found out that this was kind of a big issue for her. And that kind of led to the surgery and led to this other stuff. But I will say, the surgery was well worth it. It was a huge undertaking for her, for everyone involved. But she's standing on her own independently now.
oh my gosh, that's amazing. What a
And she
win.
loves to do it. It's her favorite thing in the world, is to pull up to stand. And she's like, I'm doing this on my own. And
Oh, that
so
feeling of
proud of herself.
independence. We've heard a lot about that today, the importance of our kids having and adults having that independence. Well, Rebecca, I hate to stop us here, but we have another speaker coming up right after you. About Duke 15Q research. But first off, good luck to your sweet Morgan on Monday. We'll be thinking about you. And thank you for sharing all your tips and tricks. And check out the website. I mean, it's amazing.
Yes, please.
Yes, thanks for everything. Thanks for joining us today. And again, good luck on Monday. Thank you so much, Rebecca.
Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah.